So let's talk about comprehension. Understanding speech. If we think about this, we can think about, what do I need to comprehend? So at first, infants are using something called prosody, which is really our intonation and stresses that we put in the language to understand what they need to do. No, don't touch that, right? My voice is lower. I may have not that sing-songiness, right? And what I'm trying to do is get the infant to stop. So infants pretty early on start to comprehend that no. But if you want them to continue, you might want them to go, oh yeah, try that out. It's instead, I'm using my high pitch inflection to really talk about the emotions behind it, really help that infant to understand what I want them to do. So that melody of the language is the very first thing that infants pick up on. And that includes all these things, such as rhythm, how fast or how slow we go, what are our intonations. So whether I'm using a lot more low pitch or high pitch voices, all of those things are part of that prosody. Let's watch a short video about how we know that infants are learning prosody before they understand the meanings of the words.
Babies love to look at faces. I mean, faces are beautifully designed for capturing an infant's attention. And of course, faces will be such an rich and important source of information for the baby throughout life. They tune into it right at the beginning.
Babies also love to listen to the music of voices. During the cabaret of childhood, we instinctively modulate our communications. Scientists like Anne Fernald call this infant-directed speech. The user-friendly name is Mother Ease.
They're very responsive to the voice, and this is an important part of their repertoire as young human beings. It's important to survival that they hook into social communication very early on. So when we talk to babies, we do strange and wonderful things with our voice, with our face. We speak more slowly, we raise the pitch, we speak much more melodically. One could say that for the first 9 months, the melody is the message.
Funny things going on in this room.
How do we know that Mother Ease is a kind of training wheels for social communication, part of a baby survival kit? Well, watch this.
In one experiment, we decided to cross the words and the music, the lyrics and the music. So babies heard either consistent messages like, yeah, good, that's right, where the words and the melody were both positive, or no, don't touch, where the words and the melody were both negative. And then they heard mixed messages where we used the pleasant words with the negative melody and vice versa.
No, don't touch. No, don't touch. No, don't touch.
What we found was that 9-month-old babies, regardless of the words, smiled and played with the object when the melody was positive. So even when you said, no, don't touch, it was fine with them, sounded good to them. They reached for the object and were very engaged with it. By 18 months, babies hearing the same vocalization were real wary. I mean, in some sense, the melody was encouraging them to touch. The words were saying, hold back. And you saw often real consternation. They didn't know what was happening. Something was wrong here.
So as you can see from that video, children are learning about that prosody, the melody of the language, and then only later do they start to comprehend the words. And so when those words and the melody are not in sync with each other or not in tune, they're like, I don't know what to do. Do I listen to the words or do I listen to the melody? So that's part of that comprehension that we start to see, is they understand that melody first, then they start understanding the words. So let's talk a little bit about those words. Phonemes are the smallest units of sound in speech. So the r in run or the v in van are those phonemes that we have. These are specific to our languages that we learn. So there's different phonemes based on what languages that you are exposed to. One of the really most intriguing things is that infants, when they're born, can hear all the phonemes in every single language. So they're capable of learning whatever language that they are exposed to. So they have this ability to really discriminate or tell the difference between all those phonemes. But somewhere in the first year of life, they stop being able to. So one of the things that they're capable of doing is hearing all that phonemes, and eventually, based on the languages that they're exposed to, start to lose that ability. So if we think about something like Japanese, they do not make a distinction between the ra and the la sound. However, we in English do. So eventually, babies that are only exposed to Japanese will stop being able to hear that difference. And that occurs within the first 6 to 12 months of life. So I wanted to show you something that's really cool is how did they figure this out? How did they find out that babies could tell the difference and then all of a sudden we're not able to? So let's watch this video about perceptual narrowing.
Trying to find out what young infants know is quite difficult as they can't speak and they're notoriously poor at following instructions. So over the years, scientists have developed a number of indirect tasks to probe infant capabilities. The most successful of these tasks take advantage of responses that infants naturally make. And in the conditioned head turn procedure, what we do is we teach babies to turn their head not just when they detect a noise or a sound, but when they detect a change from one sound category to another. It had been shown in previous work that young babies seem to be able to discriminate sounds from any of the world's languages, but that adults, like us, have difficulty hearing sound differences that are not used in our own language. I guess the most famous example there is the difficulty that Japanese adults have hearing the difference between ra and la. So I wanted to know, when does this change occur? And in a series of studies, we ascertained that there are important changes occurring during the first year of life. And that's when we honed in on testing infants of 6 to 8, 8 to 10, and 10 to 12 months of age on their ability to discriminate a native sound distinction, the ba-da, as well as a non-native distinction, in this case, 2 Ds that are used in Hindi but not English, da, da.
Da. Da.
Wow, look at the bunny.
Da.
In the conditioned head turn procedure, the infant sits on their mother's lap in a testing room. Across the table from the mother and infant, an experimental assistant sits and quietly shows the baby toys to keep him or her entertained and focused straight ahead. In the background, they're being presented with sounds. Then after a number of repetitions, the computer operator in the adjacent control room pushes a button on the computer to indicate that it's time to change to a new sound.
Da.
You teach the child to turn their head every time they detect a sound change. At 6 to 8 months of age, an infant hears da over and over again, and now hears the contrasting da come on that I know you as an adult English speaker can't hear. But that 6 to 8 month old English learning baby can hear that difference that is used in Hindi and many other languages of the world. And they turn their head just as regularly to a change from da to da as they do to a change from ba to da. At 10 to 12 months of age, an English learning baby can easily hear the difference between ba and da and turn their head appropriately. But they no longer respond to the difference between the Hindi da, da, which a Hindi learning infant of this age can discriminate. They're acting like you and I. they've honed in on the sound categories that are used in their native language, and they're failing to detect a change and not making an appropriate head turn response.
So as you can see there, babies are starting to become attuned to the things that they're exposed to. They start to become attuned to their own languages that they're hearing at home. So you do see that if a baby is learning both Japanese and English at the same time, they retain that distinction. But if they're only learning Japanese, for example, they start to have perceptual narrowing where they stop responding to that raw law distinction.